Chicago Fire FC 2021 MLS Season Preview. My name is Mike Guglielmi. I am your host, Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. How will Chicago Fire do this season? They just moved downtown from Bridgeview last year. Unfortunately, no fans in the building last season. We'll talk about that in the upcoming first game. Possibility of fans there. But let's talk first about last season. Last season recap, a season to forget, a rebuilding year, kind of an expansion type year with the rebrand, horrible rebrand. They're going to do it again next season. But until then, 23 points with a -6 goal differential last year for the Fire. 11th place in the East, missed the playoffs yet again. Not a good season from the Chicago Fire standpoint, but a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. It was a COVID year. This was a rebuilding year under new ownership, a new coach, bringing in a lot of new DPs and players, totally different squad. So maybe, just maybe, we can let last season slide if the results turn around this season. Today, we're going to talk about the offseason players in and players out, designated player review, MLS Cup odds, breakout youngsters, coach review, projected starting 11, the most important player for the Fire this season, the first game, date, and opponent. We'll talk about that first game as well as at the end of the show, so make sure you stay tuned all the way through. Predictions. My ceiling and floor for the Chicago Fire this season in 2021. Now, before we get started, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that like button down below. Turn on your notification bell as well so you don't miss any of our awesome American soccer content. And let's get into the list here of players in and players out. Players in, we've got a transfer from Rigas Chinoso 04, defender Jean Espinoza, transfer from SD Aucas, Stanislav Ivanov, transfer from Levski Sofia, forward John Jotter Duran from Envigado FC for 2022. Then you've got players out, Jeremiah Gujar, option declined. Connor Sparrow also had his option declined. Michael Azira out of contract. CJ Sapong out of contract. Jordy Mihailovic traded to CF Montreal. And Brant Bronico traded to expansion Charlotte FC. More players out than in my opinion. Although the Fire, you have to do something. You have to move players out. The team wasn't good enough last year. You've got to move on from some of these guys that have been around for a while and have just been unsuccessful. For example, CJ Sapong. Love that player. Think he's a great player to come in off the bench, maybe in the 60th minute, kind of super sub. And hey, he even plays well when he starts. But CJ Sapong, you got to move on from him. He's just not getting it done. You've got to build that new identity as the Chicago Fire. And another loss that, for me, was a huge mistake. Jordy Mihailovic traded to Montreal. Ridiculous. Jordy Mihailovic is a great player, USMNT capped. Why would you move this guy? Young, he has the talent. Why would you move him in MLS like that? It is mind-boggling. If he goes and signs overseas, I see it, but hey. Forward, Stanislav Ivanov coming in from Levski Sofia. That may be a good pick up there. As well, John Espinoza and Chinoso 04. Don't know too much about these guys coming in. But to me, the players outweigh the players in. So not the best offseason in the world for the Fire. Let's talk about the designated players for Chicago. Ignacio Alasada, Robert Barrage, and Gaston Jimenez. I'll tell you. You look at Ignacio Alasada, the player comes in highly touted winger. Really need to see better things from him this season. Robert Barrage had a great first season coming over from Europe and scored a bunch of goals, was in the Golden Boot race. So very exciting things ahead for Robert Barrage. Gaston Jimenez came over from Argentina, a decent player. Didn't get to see too much of him last season. I think that it was kind of, again, for all of these players, it was a bit of a transition season. And I hope that this season, now they've got that transition out of the way, the COVID stuff's out of the way, we're going to play a regular season. We've had an off season that these players will come together and really form a dynamic trio of designated players going forward. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I hope it does. Especially, we'll talk about one of these players coming up in the most important player section at the end. And for me, Robert Barrage has to score a bunch of goals. This team was unsuccessful with him being in that Golden Boot race. He's got to do it again, or the team will have no chance of making the playoffs. Now let's talk a bit about the MLS Cup odds for the Fire this season. What do the odds makers think in Vegas? They've given them a plus 3,300 rating, tied for 16th with FC Dallas. Not big expectations for the Fire this season from the bookies out in Vegas. And I agree. I wouldn't put money on these guys to win MLS Cup for anything. You just can't with the results they had last year and the offseason they had this year. Just not good enough. Can't see it happening. So let's get into our Breakout Youngsters section. But before we do that, guys, check out that join button down below on YouTube. We offer memberships, the best membership group in American soccer on YouTube. We've got an awesome community going here on YouTube as well as on the podcast side. Make sure you guys check that out. We offer tons of different perks. $1.99 a month for your starter level, $4.99 a month for the designated player level. And you can see the perks here on the screen. Check it out and help support this podcast and continue to grow the sport of soccer here in Chicago as well as around the United States of America. It takes more people being part of the community. It takes more people bringing out content, and we're trying to do that here at Sons of a Pitch. All right, so Breakout Youngsters. A couple guys that got mentioned from Reddit. A lot of times for these Breakout Youngsters, we'll go to Reddit. Also got some help from John Donovan, who does our weekly Fire updates on the podcast side. You've got Brian Gutierrez and Alex Moniz. Alex Moniz is from Naperville, Illinois, right close to where we are here, as in the western suburbs of Chicago. Alex Moniz or Brian Gutierrez, one of them is going to break out this season in the midfield. I can see it. A lot of talk is everybody is excited about Brian Gutierrez over Alex Moniz. I think we'll see Gutierrez getting some minutes and becoming more of that household name around MLS, not just Chicago. And Alex Moniz, I think he'll spend some more time up in Madison, and then we'll see him make the move probably next season. But he has a chance he could also break out if Brian Gutierrez does not. All right, coach review. Raphael Wiki, I'm just not sold on this guy. If he puts this team in the playoffs, he keeps his job. If he doesn't, he's out. I guarantee it. Mansueto will not put up with it. Raphael Wiki, yes, he has a solid resume. He does have that U.S. experience for the youth side. Not a ton, but a little bit. Last season, a molding season of all of the new players brought in, the huge rebuild. This is his year. He's got to get something done this year. He's got to make the playoffs, period, or else he's not going to last. For me, I would rather see him move on. I think there's a lot better coaches that have MLS experience, and I am one that is very, very high on MLS experience for a head coach in MLS. Usually, the foreign coaches that come in from Europe or South America don't do as well most of the time. Obviously, you have some that come in like Tata Martino with Atlanta United back in the beginning. He did extremely well, but usually you need that MLS experience. Raphael Wiki just didn't have it, and we'll see how he does this season. Now, let's talk about that projected starting 11. Projected starting 11, a 4-3-3 is how I see them lining up. Shuttleworth in goal. Bornstein, Calvo, Pineda, and Espinoza at the back. Jimenez, Medran, and Herbers in the midfield. Alasada, Frankowski, and then Barrage up top. So kind of could kind of be a 4-5-1 or a 4-3-3 depending on how high Alasada and Frankowski go. They are very offensive players, so I could see I see more of a 4-3-3 than a 4-5-1, but definitely a fluid transition there in the middle of a game could easily be pulled back that way. So starting 11 there, for me, there is definitely an opportunity in the midfield with Fabian Herbers. To me, he's not a starter in MLS. He should be moved out. As well, you've got along the back line, Calvo just doesn't have it anymore. He's just not the same guy he was in his days with Minnesota, and he falls asleep a lot. A good player, but he falls asleep and misses out on some plays, usually once a game, and it usually comes back to burn him. So Barrage, again, needs to have a great season, but that's my projected starting 11 for the Fire. All right, most important player, Ignacio Alasada. He needs to be the guy that they thought they were getting from Argentina. He's young, but he needs to produce big. Period. Alasada has got to come through. He's a designated player spot. The last signing of the designated players, he needs to produce this year. For me, if he doesn't do well, this team's not going to do well. If he has a great season, this team could squeak into the playoffs. Now, honorable mention to Robert Barrage, because he needs another 20-goal season, as I mentioned before, for this team to even be close to playoff caliber. So Barrage is very important, but I think it really falls on Ignacio Alasada. He has got to do better than he did last season. He's got to be stronger on that left side, and we'll see how it goes. But he is my most important player for the Chicago Fire. First game, April 17th against the New England Revolutions. Fans in the building in Soldier Field obviously won't be at full capacity due to coronavirus. However, it will be nice to see fans in the building at Soldier Field, which were really, it was so close. I think it was March 19th was the expected, maybe it was April 19th last season when they were going to host Atlanta United. And that first game at Soldier Field was almost sold out. It was going to be hell of an atmosphere. And now at least we finally get to get fans into the building downtown in Soldier Field. Well, depending on how things, you never can guarantee anything with coronavirus, especially in Chicago. Now, predictions, what you guys have all been waiting for. How do I see this season playing out for the Fire? Ceiling and a floor. I'm going to give you what I think will be the best result for the Fire and then the worst result for the Fire. For me, the ceiling is 8th, missing out on the playoffs just barely. This team is not a playoff team. I don't see it happening with Raphael Wiki as head coach, with Frank Klopas on the bench as an assistant. Can't see this team getting over the top. They just didn't look like it last season. Hopefully I'm wrong. I want to see the Fire do well. I think a good Fire team benefits the league as a whole, but I just can't see it happening. Ceiling is 8th place, just barely missing the playoffs. Floor, dead last. I could see this team finishing dead last in the East if all goes bad. Alasada doesn't come up. Barrage gets hurt. All of these different things play out. I could see this team finishing in dead last in the Eastern Conference. So there you have it. There's my predictions, guys. Hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on that notification bell as well. Smash that like button. And we'll see you guys on the next episode of Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. Good luck to the Chicago Fire this season. Hopefully they do better than my predictions. We will see. Let me know down in the comments what you think. And good luck to the Chicago Fire. See you guys soon.